what's up guys? Hardleg Joe here. Welcome to the Gem-Knight Toolbox deck. If you're unfamiliar with the Toolbox deck, basically the idea is you have all these different options, all these different fusions, and we've got a little bit of every Gem-Knight, so you're going to be able to pull out whatever you need for whatever situation you have. This does not have like a singular win condition. This has many win conditions depending on what your opponent plays. It's a very skill-based deck that requires you to think a lot about what your different options are. So we're running 2 Garnet, 2 Tourmaline, and 2 Sapphire. These are your normal Gem-Knights. They're used to make most of the Gem-Knight fusions, the ones that have interesting effects. Oh yeah, and 2 Lapis. Yes, 2 Garnet, 2 Tourmaline, 2 Sapphire, 2 Lapis. They all have no effects. They're just there, again, to make all these specific Gem-Knight fusions. We play 2 of them because 1 is a little too inconsistent, but 3 clogs your deck too much. 3 Alexandrite, you can tribute him to summon any of these guys from the deck, so he just searches those out. He also puts Gem-Knights in the graveyard, which you need, because he'll be in the graveyard. You got Gem Turtle, he lets you get your Gem-Knight fusion, which you'll need. Obsidian, he's a rock monster, so he can be used for... Well, he can be used as the fusion material for most of these, because most of them are a specific Gem-Knight plus another Gem-Knight, or in the case of this one, a rock monster. And when Obsidian's used as fusion material or sent to the graveyard for a card effect, he lets you special summon one of these normal ones from the graveyard, so you can continue your combos. Crystal Rose lets you send a Gem-Knight from your deck or hand to the graveyard, and Crystal Rose will become, its name becomes that name. So you can use it as substitute for any of these. You can also use it to get stuff in the graveyard if you need material. Pretty good card overall. And then finally we have Lazuli. When she is sent to the graveyard from anywhere by a card effect, you can add one of these normal monsters from your graveyard to your hand. So this is really useful. You can send her with Crystal Rose and get one of your monsters back. You can also, if you fuse with her, you can get a monster back. Really good for helping recoup the cost of fusioning. Obviously, we got our Gem-Knight fusion, which in addition to fusion, in addition to being used for fusion, you can banish it from your grave. You can banish a Gem-Knight from your graveyard to add this from your graveyard to your hand. So you're going to be fusioning multiple times during a given turn. That's why you want to get more Gem-Knights into the graveyard. That's why Alexandrite's so good, and Crystal Rose, because it allows you to reuse your Gem-Knight fusion. Absorb Fusion lets you grab any Gem-Knight card, including Gem-Knight fusion, from your deck to your hand. And then also you can immediately after you do that fusion summon a Gem-Knight by banishing cards from your hand or side of your field. You don't have to fusion with it, you can just use it to search, which is mostly what I did. There are some cases where you want to, but normally with this build you don't want to be banishing more Gem-Knights than you need to. So I wouldn't advise using the fusion aspect of this. But as a searcher it's just good. It lets you get Gem-Knight fusion or anything else. Dark Factory of Mass Production lets you reuse your normal monsters, which you have a lot of in this deck. Of all the cards, this is probably the easiest to swap out. You can really replace this with anything. It doesn't make the deck that much more consistent. It's just nice to have. Brilliant Fusion makes the deck without... This is like win harder card. This lets you fusion summon any of your Gem-Knights by sending cards from your deck to your graveyard. So it deck thins, it allows you to get anything. And then, of course, if you send Lazuli and a normal monster, you can add that normal monster to your hand, so it opens up for even more combos. Really awesome card. It's a continuous spell, so if they MST it, they can get rid of whatever monster you make. But that's never happened to me yet, in all the time I've tested it. Brilliant Spark also really helps the deck do a lot of burn damage. This deck survives by a combination of attacks and burn damage. Basically, if one of your Gem-Knights is destroyed, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to its attack. And you can also add this back from your graveyard to your hand by discarding a Gem-Knight card. So you can obviously discard Fusion because you can add that back to your hand at a whim. You can use it to discard Obsidian to special summon one of your normal monsters. Because you can do that effect during your opponent's turn. So if you've got Obsidian and a normal monster in the graveyard and this in the graveyard, you can do some shenanigans. You can also send Lazuli and add one back to your hand. Pretty useful card. If you're not playing a burn damage variant, if you don't want to burn people, you can take this out, but I highly recommend it. And then a Galaxy Cyclone, just to take care of back row. Again, you could replace this with whatever you want. generic staples. If you want to have Fiendish Chain, Dark Hole, Raigeki, any of these side deck cards, just works in place. I was just having more trouble with Pendulums, so I put Galaxy Cyclone in here. Extra deck, we've got, we'll just start, we got 2 Ixies. We got Silent Honor Arc and Pearl. I didn't want to run these at first, but they really help in the few cases where you can get 2 Gem-Knights out on the field, but not get fusion. Silent Honor Arc's the most useful. Pearl I put in there because he can get over some things, and also you can discard him from the graveyard to get your fusion back. So, yeah, I rarely use them, but they're there. We've got 1 Lapis Lazuli, which does massive amounts of burn damage, and lets you send a Gem-Knight from your extra deck or deck to the graveyard. Again, you can activate her effect with that, you can get more material, or you can send stuff to the graveyard to use for Master Diamond, which I'll talk about when I get to him. Aquamarine, when it leaves the field, you can target 1 card and send it back to the hand. So you fusion summon this, and then you use this as material for something else, or you tribute it to activate Lady Brilliant Diamond's effect, and then you get to send something back to the hand. Likewise, this guy does the same thing when he's sent from the field, but he sends all set spell and traps back to the hand. So you can clean up your opponent's back row, at least for 1 turn, to make a big push. Again, same sort of idea. Summon it, and then use it as material, or use it as a cost. Topaz. He can attack twice, and when he destroys a monster, he inflicts damage equal to that monster's attack. Great for certain decks that use like Swarm with small monsters, or if you can use him with Master Diamond. Ruby does piercing damage, and you can tribute a Gem-Knight to add that Gem-Knight's attack to his. Really good for like OTKing under certain conditions. And again, pretty much all of these are good, decent on their own, but you can use their effect with Master Diamond. Master Diamond is any 3 Gem-Knights. He gains 100 attack for every Gem-Knight in the graveyard. And once per turn, you can banish one of these guys from the graveyard, and he gains their effect. So you'll have like a 3,500 attack plus monster who can like also inflict burn damage, who can attack twice and deal damage, who can do piercing and gain even more attack. Or Citrine is your opponent cannot activate traps or effects, spell, trap, or monster effects until the end after he attacks. So then he becomes sort of like an Armades or like a UA Slugger. Prismuras discard a Gem-Knight card to destroy a face-up card on the field. So that's good for getting rid of certain monsters and stuff like that. And again, it's once per turn, but if you summon this, use his effect, and then summon Master Diamond using him, you can then use Master Diamond to copy him and use his effect again. And it's any Gem-Knight card, so you can use Fusion and just banish stuff, get Fusion back, and then discard it for his effect. We play 2 Zirconia because he's a 2900 beat stick, and you can fuse him even if you don't have a normal monster. Gem Turtle works with him, Rose works with him, they're both rocks, so that works well. Master Diamond, I already explained, he's your bread and butter. He does a crap ton of attack, and again, you can just give him whatever effect that you think he needs for that situation. Super useful. And then the new card, Lady Brilliant, she has 3,400 attack, which is a lot. Again, she's any 3 Gem-Knight monsters, which these 2 can be kind of hard to do from the field, but with Brilliant Fusion, you can get them out anytime, just by sending any 3 Gem-Knights from your deck to the graveyard. And again, if you use Brilliant Fusion to send Lazuli and one of these, you can get one to your hand. Now, Lady Brilliant's effect is tribute any other Gem-Knight, or any Gem-Knight, including herself, to summon any other Gem-Knight fusion from the deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So generally what you want to do is use Brilliant Fusion to get Lady Brilliant, and then either normal summon or just tribute herself to get Master Diamond. Okay, so use Brilliant Fusion to get Lady Brilliant. Use Gem-Knight Fusion to summon one of these. Use her effect to tribute one of these to get out Master Diamond. Master Diamond will take the effect but have way more attack, and then you attack with both of them for 4,000 plus damage and just do whatever. So there's a lot of interesting combos you can do with this. I should note, Brilliant Fusion, when it summons the monster, their attack and defense becomes 0, but you can discard a spell card to make their attack back to their regular attack until the end of your opponent's turn. Again, because you can use Gem-Knight Fusion, you can use that as the cost. You can use Galaxy Cyclone as the cost if you need that in the graveyard. So there's a lot of combos there. As for the side deck, most of these are actual, like, I would put these in the side deck if I was playing this deck in real life, and they're basically just, if you notice that one or more of these is particularly useful or not useful against your opponent, you side out accordingly. Like, if you need to do more burn damage because they're making a deck where you can't attack, then you put in another Lapis and you put in another Lady Lazuli. If they're a bunch of swarming, you want to get Ruby or you want to get Citrine. It's just extra versions of those and you add them in. I got Gem Armadillo, let you grab any Gem-Knight. He's also a rock, so you can use Zirconia. I found he was a little too slow, and I don't run enough Zirconias, but if you ran 3 Zirconias and you wanted to do a more beatdown style deck, I'd recommend him. Kari Bandit, useful for putting stuff in the graveyard and getting your Gem-Knight fusion, but again, a little slow. You have to wait a turn. I was getting OTK'd trying to use him, but you know, if you can get a little more stall, he's really useful. Unexpected Die, let you summon any of your fusion or normal monsters. Again, kind of good. I ended up swapping it out for Dark Factory of Mass Production because I found it was better to reuse stuff than to get stuff. Especially if you draw this and you already have a monster, it's not all that useful. But it does open up more like rank 4 play, so if you had more of an Ixie extra deck and less of these fusions, you'd probably want to use this. You have to be a fool not to play Raigeki. Dark Hole works here pretty well as well, because a lot of times you want to clear the field and then make a massive play. Fusion Conscription. Again, another option for searching for stuff. The only problem is you can't normal summon or special summon monsters that you add. So if you want to normal summon Garnet, you can't, and just attack for 19 or whatever. But since most of these don't have effects, this doesn't have as much of a hamper as it normally would. Gigantes, he's a good if you're running into a lot of spell traps or pendulum decks. It's banish an earth monster from your graveyard to special summon him, and if he's destroyed, destroy all spell traps on the field. It's a little convoluted, but you can crash him into things to disrupt your opponent's pendulum scales. All of these are earth except for Crystal Rose, so you've got a lot of targets. And he's also a rock monster, so worst comes to worst, you can make Zirconia with him and another Gem-Knight. And finally, Lightning Vortex. Lightning Vortex, Karma Cut, anything that lets you discard is made better in this deck, just because if you discard Obsidian, you can special summon. If you discard Lazuli, you can add to your hand. You can reuse Gem-Knight Fusion over and over again. So the cost is sort of negated. So some of these cards that are really good, but are like, but I'd have to discard to use it, they become better in this deck. I didn't use it for this build. Again, I went with Galaxy Cyclone, but you could easily put, if they were more monster heavy, you could put Karma Cut or Lightning Vortex or whatever you want here in place of this, in place of Brilliant Spark, and you'd have some good counters to whatever your opponent has. Really, with these toolbox decks, you can just throw in a lot of different stuff and experiment. That's kind of what makes them so great. Make your own custom version of it. So there's the Gem-Knight Toolbox deck. If you want to see it in action, I played 10 duels. They were pretty good ones, too, against random opponents. You can check out the What-A deck. It's in the description. And, yeah, next week I'll be here with another deck profile. You want to check it out? Till then, you guys have a good one. Good luck, have fun. I'll see you next week.